Did you know that St. Luke's University Health Network has been recognized by the U.S. government as the highest performing health system in the United States for quality? You heard right. St. Luke's #1 recognition affirms our status as the top leader among the most respected healthcare providers in the nation, including Houston Methodist and the Mayo Clinic. To state it simply, if you want to receive the best care when you go to a hospital, come to St. Luke's.
Listen, all you New Yorkers. Excuse me, taxi.
Okay, man, we're looking around.
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
And tonight on the Rita Cosby Show, are we back at square one in the Nancy Guthrie investigation? Well, some very disheartening news coming from Pima County, Arizona Sheriff Chris Nanos, who did a number of interviews today. And what he revealed was essentially they've hit a brick wall. And that's pretty stunning considering we are now into week 3 and they've got the weight of the president of the United States. They've got the weight of the FBI. They, of course, have the Pima County Sheriff's Department. There are so many investigators looking into this case. And yet it seems that there's no clear end in sight, no clear suspect in sight. At least that's what they're saying. And he sounds pretty sincere about it, which is very, very troubling. So some new details, by the way, in the last few hours, and this is good news that apparently they have raised the ransom amount, the reward, I should say, because we haven't heard any details yet on the ransom, at least in the last 24 hours. It's unclear if TMZ got another one today. It doesn't sound like it, but they did get one yesterday. But the reward is up to $200,000. It was $100,000 by, of course, the local authorities and others putting it in. And now apparently a private attorney has stepped up and made it another $100,000, bringing it up to $200,000. That's a big, big amount. So hopefully that is promising that somebody will now come forward and say, you know what? Thank goodness there's more money engaged. Maybe somebody will rat out somebody else for $200,000. Not that $50,000 isn't a lot of money, because that's obviously a lot of money too. That's where it started out. Then it got doubled, of course, to $100,000, and then it went up to $200,000. And when you look at all of those different things, it really makes it more enticing for somebody to say, yeah, maybe I'll rat out so-and-so. Maybe I'll able to big break in this case, if you will. Now, in one of the letters that Harvey Levin of TMZ came forward with, he said that in one particular one, the guy said, I was with Nancy. I saw Nancy. He alludes that it was south of the border, that it was across the border in Mexico, and alludes that it was a few days ago and it was them, meaning plural. So if that guy's for real, and we don't know if any of it's for real, but if indeed it turns out to be real, then you would think $200,000 would be a pretty nice sum to entice somebody to rat out some pretty bad folks and then maybe join the witness protection program or fly to Bora Bora or something like that. What are your thoughts tonight when you hear some of the details coming out from the sheriff in this case? Again, week 3 has now begun, and so far, no answers, and an extraordinarily high-profile case with some of the best of this business looking into it. Here's a couple details. First off, Sheriff Nanos, he was doing an interview with Fox, and everybody was wondering, is this DNA going to match? Remember, there was a glove that was found 2 miles from the house. And everybody thought, okay, apparently 16 gloves were found. And they found this one that they said, we don't have anybody familiar that would match this DNA. So maybe this could be the attacker. Maybe it could be the guy that you see in all that crazy surveillance footage with the mask and everything else. But today, Arizona Sheriff Chris Nanos broke this bad news. Take a listen.
The DNA on the glove that was found 2 miles away was submitted for CODIS, and I just heard that CODIS had no hits.
No hits on the DNA found in the glove?
Correct.
So you are no closer to a suspect as a result of the DNA test, at least.
As a result of CODIS.
As a result of CODIS. Now, that is the criminal system. That means the person probably obviously doesn't have any priors. They could still also go through some of these genealogy sites and try to track it down, but that takes a lot longer. They also said in the same interview that some of the DNA that was found in the house that was not attached to the family or anybody and workers and others you would have assumed that didn't get a hit either. So that's not good either when you look at it, that they don't have anything so far from the DNA there. They're going to have to do further checks like those Ancestry, the 23andMe and those kind of things, because they are able to get into them, especially for law enforcement purposes. Maybe they can get a relative. Maybe they can get a distant cousin or something like that. Maybe there's something in there, but so far not in the criminal database. And also, this was fascinating because he kind of alluded to motive. And this to me is actually a pretty big deal because a lot of people thought maybe it was a robbery, a break-in gone wrong, that the person was trying to break into the house, saw an elderly person, and then things kind of blew up and went south, and somehow they ended up taking Nancy Guthrie. But maybe the intention was a robbery or something else. But listen to what Sheriff Chris Nanos of Pima County said. He was pretty clear. And believe me, obviously he's close to the case. He says it was a targeted kidnapping. That raised my eyebrows. Listen to this.
You just said and your briefings, you believe it's a kidnapping.
I believe it was a kidnapping.
Targeted kidnapping.
Yes, I believe whoever did that knew what they were up to.
So do you believe
knew who they were after?
Knew who they were after. So who knows? Maybe he was asked, did they know they were going after Savannah Guthrie's mother? Were they targeting her for a particular reason? Here's a little bit more from that interview with the sheriff about what he thinks happened and didn't happen.
Don't believe it was a burglary gone wrong? Is that what you're saying?
I believe it was a kidnapping.
I believe it was a kidnapping. You heard Jonathan Hunt went back at him and he said, no, I believe the intended purpose of going into that house was a kidnapping, not a burglary/robbery gone wrong. And now here's a little bit more from Jonathan Hunt talking about his interview with the sheriff. And he also talked about the fact that the family, he says, has been 100% clear. This is cut number 6. Take a listen.
Extraordinary, Gillian. When you talk to him, and you can feel the frustration in the sheriff. Obviously, he has come in for some criticism from some quarters, but I will say now, having got to know him a little bit over the last 16 days that we've been here, he is a man who wants to solve this crime, quite obviously. He has decades in law enforcement. There's Monday morning quarterbacking going on. Maybe some mistakes have been made. That's not for me to say. But this is a man who has a lot of compassion for the Guthrie family, really wants, just like every single law enforcement official on the ground here, they want to solve this case. But clearly, they are very frustrated, and clearly they are struggling to find out where Nancy Guthrie is and who took her.
And then Jonathan also asked, was there something taken from the home? Now, again, he said he doesn't believe it was a burglary gone wrong, but was there something they were targeting inside the house? Was there money in a safe or something in particular, or an item that they were looking for? Who knows? And also, what about forced entry? Remember, he's not telling us if he thinks there was forced entry or not. So I'm happy to hear, even though we'd all love to know the details, that they're still keeping a number of things close to the vest. Here's a little bit more of Jonathan Hunt describing some of his conversations with the Arizona sheriff in the heart of the biggest case in the world right now.
And he said quite plainly, there are things we are not going to tell you because they are so germane to this investigation that they could compromise this investigation if we tell you. And as we've said throughout, John, they have every right to keep whatever information they want from us. But clearly, yeah, it's a struggle. But equally clearly, the sheriff believes in his gut. And I asked him his gut as a decades-long law enforcement officer what he thinks this is. And he said, I believe it is a kidnapping, not a burglary gone wrong.
It was pretty direct.